20 years. That was how long Rowan Ashford had been hidden from the world. He had no memory of his real father. His stepfather, Marcus Blackwood, had raised him in isolation, a small cottage deep in the forest, far from any packed territory, far from anyone who might recognize what he was. Marcus was a beta, cold and controlling, and he had one rule for Rowan: never let anyone see what you are. What was Rowan? He didn't fully understand it himself. He knew he was different. Animals came to him, injured birds, frightened rabbits, and most of all, wolves. Lost wolf pups found their way to his door with impossible regularity, drawn by something they seemed to sense, but he couldn't explain. Marcus called it a curse. He beat Rowan whenever the pups appeared, punishing him for drawing attention, for being a freak. So Rowan learned to hide them, to care for them in secret, to release them back into the forest before his stepfather noticed. But he couldn't hide them all. One winter night, when Rowan was 16, a litter of 5 wolf pups appeared on the cottage doorstep, shivering and half-starved. Marcus was away, and Rowan took them in, nursing them back to health with stolen milk and whispered promises. He named them Shade, Trouble, Flint, Ember, and Rook. They never left. When Marcus returned and found them, his rage was terrifying. He beat Rowan until the boy couldn't stand, then locked him in the cellar for 3 days. But when he came back, the pups were still there, guarding Rowan's unconscious body with growls that promised violence. Marcus never touched Rowan again after that, not because he'd grown a conscience, but because the pups had made it clear they would kill him if he tried. Instead, he took Rowan deeper into the wilderness, further from any civilization, and built a new cottage. And the pups followed. Now, at 20 years old, Rowan stood in the doorway of a small, crumbling storage room behind the Border Tavern, his stepfather's latest attempt at hiding him. The tavern owner, Mira Ashford, no relation, just a coincidence of names, had given him work and a place to stay when she'd found him foraging for mushrooms in the woods 3 years ago. She was a sharp-tongued beta woman who pretended she didn't care about anything. But she was also the one who kept his secret, fed his pups, and never asked too many questions. The storage room had once held barrels and spare linens. Now it held 12 abandoned wolf pups, the original 5 plus 7 more who had found him over the years. Most of them were still more comfortable in wolf form than human form. Some were young alphas who had become unstable after trauma. Some were omega pups who had locked down their scent until they barely felt alive. Some were beta pups nobody had bothered to claim. To Rowan, they were not useless. They were children. Shade, the tiny black pup who acted like Rowan's personal guard, sat on his foot. Trouble, the brown pup, chewed bootlaces. Flint and Ember, twin gray pups, wrestled in a corner. Rook, a silver pup, growled at every shadow. The others, the newer ones, still scared, still healing, curled together in a pile of old blankets. "You're outgrowing this room," Mira said from the doorway, her arms crossed. Rowan sighed. "I know. They're going to be found eventually. You can't hide forever. Marcus will find me if I leave. So, let him try." Myra's eyes hardened. "You're not a child anymore, Rowan. You don't have to let him control you." Rowan looked at his hands. They were scarred from years of hiding, from caring for creatures that no one else wanted. "You don't understand. He told me what I am, what I can do. He said people would use me, lock me up, study me like an experiment. Maybe he lied. Maybe." Rowan looked toward the north-facing window. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then he felt it, a pull in his chest, faint but familiar. Hundreds of small, silent cries, calling from the dark. Or maybe he told the truth, and that's why I have to stay hidden. The sound of heavy boots on the tavern floor made Rowan freeze. Myra's expression sharpened. "That's not our usual crowd," she said. Rowan quickly pulled the storage room door shut. "Stay here. Quiet." He followed Mira downstairs, but halfway down, he froze. 6 warriors stood inside the tavern entrance, wearing dark uniforms marked with the silver crest of the Northern Dominion. They were not common guards. They moved like trained soldiers. But the men at the center took all the air from the room. 3 of them, identical, triplet alphas. They were tall, broad-shouldered, and dangerously calm. Dark hair fell slightly past their collars, and their eyes were the color of winter storms. Their scent reached Rowan from across the room. Pine smoke, cold air, and alpha power. Not just alphas, alpha kings. Mira leaned close and whispered, "Those are the Nightshade brothers, Kalian, Theron, and Caspian, rulers of the Northern Dominion. What are they doing in my tavern?" The one in the center, Kalen, Rowan would learn, stepped forward. His gaze swept over the room, checking exits, people, threats. Then his eyes landed on Rowan. For one long second, he looked almost relieved. "Rowan Ashford?" Kalen's voice was deep, rough, and tired. Son of Lena Ashford, hidden for 20 years by her second husband, Marcus Blackwood. Rowan's stomach dropped. Mira stepped slightly in front of him. And why would the Alpha Kings of the North care about a tavern worker? Kalen did not look away from Rowan. Because his mother was the last Moonwolf. And by blood, he is the only one left. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Rowan felt his pulse hammer in his throat. Moonwolf. The term stirred something in his memory. Fragments of his mother's voice, whispering stories before Marcus had silenced her forever. "I don't know what you're talking about," Rowan said. "Yes, you do." Kalen's voice gentled. "The pups, they come to you, don't they? Wounded, lost, orphaned. They find you because something in them knows you are safe. That's the gift of the Moonwolf. Not dominance, not power over others. Healing, protection, a home for the lost." Behind him, the other 2 brothers moved closer. Theron, the middle triplet, had sharp, assessing eyes. Caspian, the youngest, seemed more open, almost curious. "The pups you've been hiding," Theron said. "They're not just abandoned. They're survivors. And there are hundreds more like them in our territory, fading away in shelters that can't reach them." Caspian added, "We came because we need your help." Rowan stared at them. For 20 years, his stepfather had told him the world would fear him, use him, destroy him. Now 3 Alpha Kings stood in a border tavern, asking for his help like he might be the only answer left. Then every pup upstairs went silent. Not playful silence, listening silence. A moment later, Shade appeared at the top of the stairs, having escaped the storage room. The black pup ran down, planted himself in front of Rowan, and growled at the triplets like he could fight 3 Alpha Kings with baby teeth alone. One guard moved. Kalen raised a hand, stopping him at once. Then he looked at Shade, not offended, but almost moved. "A wounded pup does not protect someone like that," Kalen said quietly, "unless that person is home." Rowan bent and lifted Shade into his arms. His voice came out quieter than he wanted. "What do you want from me?" Kalen's face became serious. "Come to the Northern Dominion. Bring your pups. See the shelters. Help us fix what we've been doing wrong. We've kept them alive, but they're not living. They're fading. And you're the only one who can reach them." Rowan looked at the 3 brothers, at their identical faces, their different expressions. Kalen, steady and commanding. Theron, watchful and calculating. Caspian, warmer, almost hopeful. Something in his chest stirred, something he didn't understand. "And if I refuse, then we protect you anyway," Caspian said. "But from a distance, which means we can't guarantee your safety." His voice was gentle, but the implication was clear. "You already know too much. And Marcus Blackwood, he's been looking for you." At the mention of his stepfather's name, Rowan went cold. "We can protect you," Theron added. "All of you, your pups, and the ones still out there, waiting." Rowan took a breath, then another. He thought about his mother, about the stories she'd told him before Marcus had taken her away. about the moon wolf's duty to the lost, about a destiny he'd never believed was real. 1 month, Rowan said. Trial period. If it's not working, I walk away, and my pups stay with me. No separation. Agreed, the triplets said in unison. No mating expectations. Rowan's voice hardened. I'm not going there to become part of your bloodline. Kaylin's expression flickered. Something like surprise, maybe respect. Agreed. We're asking for your help, not your bond. Rowan held his gaze. And if your nobles push that anyway? Kaylin's smile was sharp. They answer to me. Behind Rowan, the other pups had gathered at the top of the stairs, watching with wide eyes. Mira crossed her arms. Well, she said dryly, I guess you're going north. They left the next morning. The journey north was chaotic. Trouble immediately tried to claim the carriage as her territory. Flint and Ember turned the seats into a battlefield. Rook stayed alert at the window. Shade refused to leave Rowan's lap. Lumen, a red-brown pup they'd found on the way, barely alive beneath a fallen tree, slept almost the entire time, waking only to eat a little. The triplets rode alongside for most of the trip, taking turns checking in without stepping too close. Kaylin was the most reserved, keeping his distance but always watching. Theron asked sharp questions about Rowan's past, his abilities, his stepfather. Caspian brought warm blankets and extra food, his concern evident. Your brothers are very different, Rowan observed one evening, as they made camp in a sheltered valley. Caspian smiled. We balance each other. Kaylin is the strategist, the one who carries the weight of the crown. Theron is the skeptic. He questions everything, which makes him invaluable in council. And I'm the diplomat, the one who reminds them that people matter more than politics. And which one is right? Usually, none of us. We need all three to see the whole picture. Rowan looked toward the fire, where Kaylin and Theron were speaking in low tones. He said on the last moon wolf. What does that mean exactly? Caspian's expression softened. Moon wolves were legendary. They could heal with a touch, calm the wildest beasts, bring hope to the hopeless. But they were hunted centuries ago by those who feared their power. Most were killed. The rest went into hiding. Your mother was the last known survivor. He paused. Until you. How do you know it's me? The pups. Caspian gestured toward Shade, curled at Rowan's feet. They find you because your scent calls to them, not as a command, but as a promise. Safety. Home. That's the moon wolf's gift. Rowan looked down at his hands. They were scarred, calloused, ordinary. But something warm flickered in his chest, a feeling he'd suppressed for so long he'd almost forgotten it existed. Your stepfather tried to bury that gift, Caspian continued. But you can't bury what's meant to be found. On the third day, the landscape shifted. Stone markers lined the road. The air grew sharper. And then Nightfall Keep came into view, massive, structured, alive with movement. Rowan stared at it. That's a lot. Kaylin rode up beside him. Try not to look too impressed. Theron will get insufferable. I heard that. Theron called from behind. You were meant to. The carriage stopped at the main entrance. Kaylin opened the door and offered his hand. Rowan took it. Just a step down, nothing more. A woman approached immediately, silver-streaked hair, sharp eyes, controlled posture. Celine Merrill, Kaylin said, head of territory operations. Celine looked Rowan over once, then at the 12 pups behind him. Her gaze paused on Lumen, still wearing the strip of cloth around his neck, a remnant from the fallen tree, marked with a faded symbol. This is going to complicate things, she said. Rowan adjusted Lumen in his arms. He's not a complication. Celine held his gaze for a moment, then nodded once. Rooms are ready. You'll rest tonight. Tomorrow, you meet the shelters. Rowan looked past her, beyond the walls, toward the north. The pull hit him again, stronger now. Not one, not a few, hundreds. Waiting. That night, in a room far larger than anything he was used to, All 12 pups woke at the same time. They turned toward the same direction. No sound, just knowing. Rowan sat up slowly, because beyond the safety of the keep, something was calling. And now that he was here, it wasn't going to stop. The first shelter looked perfect. That was the problem. Warm lighting, clean floors, soft bedding arranged in neat rows, bowls of fresh food placed at equal distances, caregivers moving carefully between groups. Everything was organized, efficient, controlled, and completely wrong. The moment Rowan stepped inside, his chest tightened. The silence was too heavy. Not calm, not restful. It was the kind of silence that came when too many children had already learned that no one was coming back. Dozens of pups filled the space. Some curled into themselves in wolf form, backs pressed against walls. Some sat in human form, knees pulled close, eyes empty. A few looked up when Kaylin entered, reacting instinctively to alpha presence, but most didn't move at all. Rowan's pups shifted closer to him. Even Trouble didn't make a sound. Celine stood beside him, voice low but precise. Shelter 1, 138 pups. Ages range from infant to early development. All physically stable. Rowan didn't look at her. He was watching a small gray pup sitting in front of a full food bowl. The pup wasn't eating. How long since he touched that? Rowan asked. Celine checked her slate. When? Omega pup. 3 days without proper intake. A caregiver stepped forward quickly. We've tried feeding schedules, gentle encouragement, scent stimulation. Stop, Rowan said softly. The caregiver froze. Rowan walked over, then crouched a few feet away from the pup. Not too close, not reaching. Hi, Win, he said quietly. You don't have to eat for me. No response. Rowan sat down fully on the floor. Behind him, Shade moved first. The small black pup walked forward, sniffed the bowl, took a small bite, then lay down beside it like it wasn't a big deal at all. Win's ears twitched. That was it. That tiny reaction. Celine watched closely. You're not intervening? He's not refusing food, Rowan said. He's refusing pressure. Across the shelter, things began to shift. Trouble approached a group of pups hiding under a table and gave a series of sharp yips, like she was scolding them for something only she understood. Flint and Ember found a pile of cushions and immediately started rearranging them into a messy structure. 2 nearby pups watched, then one crawled closer, then another. Rook positioned himself near the window, alert and still. 3 tense alpha pups drifted toward him, drawn to his steady presence without even realizing it. Lumen, still weak, curled beside a trembling pup and didn't move away when the other flinched. Rowan didn't direct any of it. He just allowed it. That's not structured, Celine said quietly. No, Rowan replied. It's real. He moved slowly through the shelter, not trying to fix anyone. He sat beside a beta pup who wouldn't look at him and said nothing at all. He told another, you can miss them. That doesn't make you weak. He told a small alpha pup who kept growling. You don't have to fight everything today. He didn't force eye contact. He didn't demand response. He stayed. That was the difference. By midday, something changed. Not dramatically, not magically, but enough. Win took one small bite from his bowl after watching Shade again. A beta pup leaned against Flint and Ember's uneven cushion structure instead of sitting alone. 2 omega pups shifted closer together without being told. A caregiver covered her mouth. He ate 1 bite, Rowan said. That's enough for today. Kaylin stood a short distance away, watching everything with careful attention. We try to make them recover, he said quietly. Rowan glanced at him. You try to move them forward. They're still stuck back there. Kaylin didn't argue. Celine lowered her slate slowly. Then what do they need? Permission, Rowan said. To not be okay yet. The words settled heavily. For the first time, Celine didn't write anything down. Later, Rowan sat near the wall, exhausted. Shade and Lewin rested against him. His head leaned back for just a second. When he opened his eyes, Kalen's cloak was draped over his shoulders again. Kalen sat nearby, not touching, just present. You should have woken me, Rowan said. You needed rest, Kalen replied. Rowan looked around. The shelter wasn't healed, but it wasn't frozen anymore either. That mattered. Then Celine returned. Her expression had hardened again. The council knows, she said. Kalen stood immediately. Already? Yes. Lady Verrill Thorne is demanding your presence tonight. Rowan frowned. Why? Celine looked at him directly. Because you're a problem. Kalen's voice dropped. She's testing him. She's challenging your authority, Celine corrected. Rowan let out a slow breath. Of course it couldn't be that simple. That night, the great hall felt colder than the shelter. Nobles stood in clusters, watching Rowan openly now. Some curious, some skeptical, some already dismissive. Rowan stood beside the triplets, wearing formal robes that didn't feel like his. Lady Verrill Thorne approached with a smooth smile. Elegant, controlled, dangerous. So, she said, voice just loud enough for others to hear. This is the hidden Omega the kings believe will save our territory? The words hit. Even after everything, they still hit. Before Rowan could respond, Halen stepped slightly forward. Rowan has done in one day what your methods failed to do in months. Verrill's smile didn't break. Temporary emotional shifts are not long-term solutions. Rowan met her gaze. Neither is forcing children to act like they're healed. A few nobles shifted uncomfortably. Verrill tilted her head slightly. You speak boldly for someone with no rank. I speak as someone who stayed, Rowan replied. That landed. For a brief second, silence. Then the doors burst open. A guard rushed in, breath uneven. Your Majesty's Shelter 3, emergency. Kalen turned instantly. What? Omega pop. Silent drop. No response to healers. Everything in Rowan snapped into focus. No hesitation, no fear, just movement. I'm going, he said. The triplets didn't stop him. Rowan didn't remember crossing the distance from the hall to Shelter 3. One moment he was standing under the eyes of nobles. The next he was moving fast through stone corridors with Kalen beside him. Theron and Caspian close behind, and Celine already ahead issuing orders. The pulse in his chest wasn't distant anymore. It was sharp, fragile, like something slipping through his fingers. When they reached the shelter, the atmosphere hit him immediately, not quiet this time, but panicked. Caregivers clustered near the back wall. Several pups cried in uneven bursts. Others had retreated into corners, eyes wide, reacting to the fear of the adults more than anything else. Rowan pushed through gently. Move a little, please. They parted without question. On the floor, on a low sleeping mat, lay a small silver wolf pup. Too still. Rowan dropped to his knees beside him. What's his name? Soren, Celine said. Omega pup. 8 months since last shift. Minimal response for weeks. A healer nearby spoke quickly. His scent vanished completely. No emotional response. Pulse dropping. Rowan looked at Soren. Clean fur, warm body, everything done right, and still gone. He didn't touch him. Not yet. Soren, Rowan said softly. I'm here. No reaction. Behind him, footsteps. The triplets, controlled, present. What is silent drop? Rowan asked quietly. Celine answered. When an Omega shuts down completely. It's survival, turning inward. Sometimes they don't come back. Rowan's chest tightened. No, not this one. Stop all stimulation, Rowan said. The healer blinked. But, stop. The word wasn't loud, but it carried. Everything stilled. From the doorway, Lady Verrill's voice cut in, sharp and measured. So your solution is to do nothing while the pup dies? Rowan didn't turn. He said, calm watch. Then he sat on the floor beside Soren. Not touching, just there. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing changed. Somewhere behind him, one of the caregivers shifted nervously. Rowan ignored it. You don't have to come back all at once, he murmured. You don't have to wake up because we're scared. You don't know anyone's strength right now. Silence. Then something small. A twitch. Barely there. The healer inhaled sharply. Rowan didn't move closer. That's enough, he said softly. Just that much. Behind him, movement. His pops. They had come. No one called them. Shade slipped in first, then Lumen, then the others. Trouble didn't bark this time. Flint and Ember stayed close together. Rook took position near the wall like a guard. They settled around Soren, not crowding, just present. The air shifted. Rowan felt it. He let his own scent open slightly. Not strong, not pushing, just enough. A soft, cool presence, like moonlight. Soren's breathing changed. Once, twice. Then his body trembled. The shift came, uneven, broken in places, but it came. Fur receded, small limbs reshaped. A pale boy with silver hair appeared where the wolf had been. His eyes stayed closed. His lips moved. No sound. Rowan leaned closer, still not grabbing him. I'm here. Soren's eyes opened. Gray. Lost. Papa, he whispered. The word broke the room. Rowan swallowed hard. I'm not him, he said gently. But you don't have to be alone anymore. Soren stared at him, then moved, slowly, clumsily, until he collapsed into Rowan's arms. The sob that came out of him was small, raw, real, alive. But the moment didn't stay soft. It spread, like something had been triggered across the shelter. One pup started crying, then another. An alpha pup growled sharply. A beta pup bolted toward the wall. 2 omega pups curled into themselves, scent locking again in panic. The entire room shifted into chaos. Celine started calling orders. Caregivers moved quickly. Guards blocked the exits so no pup could run out into danger. Lady Verrill stepped back, eyes wide. What is happening? They're remembering, Rowan said, holding Soren steady. They're reliving it. Kalen stepped forward, stopped, then did something no one expected. He lowered himself, one knee to the ground. Alpha presence dropping, not rising. I am here, Kalen said, voice steady but low. No one is leaving. No one is being taken. Theron moved to the other side of the room, his presence a calm anchor. Caspian knelt beside a group of frightened pups, his sense soft and reassuring. The shift was immediate. Not full calm, but enough. Rowan felt something inside him respond. This wasn't just about Soren anymore. It was all of them. He closed his eyes for a second, then let it open. His scent, fully, still soft, still not overwhelming, but wider now. Reaching, not commanding, inviting. Shade pressed against a shaking pop. Lumen crawled closer to another. Trouble made a sharp noise that somehow cut through the panic better than any adult voice. Flint and Ember drew 2 pups into their messy little space. Slowly, the chaos broke. Not gone, but held. Soren's sobs softened into uneven breaths against Rowan's chest. The room settled, exhausted, quiet again. But different now. Alive. When Rowan finally looked up, Lady Verrill had no words left. Kalen stood slowly. His gaze moved across the shelter, then landed on her. You wanted to see his method, he said. You've seen it. By morning, the entire keep knew. Rowan had barely slept. He'd stayed with Soren until the boys' breathing evened out, then moved through the other shelters, checking on pups, calming caregivers, ensuring everyone was safe. The triplets had been with him every step of the way. Kalen handling logistics, Taryn interrogating the shelter records, Caspian bringing food and blankets. But now, as dawn broke over Nightfall Keep, a new crisis emerged. A guard rushed into the main hall, breath uneven. Your Majesties, a messenger from the Southern Territories has arrived. Kalen's gaze sharpened. Who? Marcus Blackwood. He claims the Omega in your care is his legal ward, taken without permission. He's demanding his return. Rowan went cold. 20 years of hiding, and now his stepfather had found him. Farron's expression hardened. He has no legal standing. Rowan is an adult. He's claiming emotional distress and undue influence, the guard continued. He's also filed a complaint with the council, alleging that the three of you have manipulated his vulnerable Omega ward into an inappropriate relationship. Caspian's laugh was sharp. That's absurd. Absurd or not, it's given Lady Veril the opening she needs, Selene said, appearing in the doorway. She's calling for an emergency council session to investigate. If they rule against us, they could remove Rowan from the shelters and from your protection. Rowan's hands trembled, not from fear, from anger. Let him come, Rowan said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Let Marcus Blackwood come here. Let him stand in front of the council and explain why he kept me hidden for 20 years. Why he beat me whenever pups found me. Why he told me the world would fear me, use me, destroy me. Rowan's voice steadied. I'm done hiding. Kaylin's eyes were soft. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The council hall was packed. Nobles filled the upper tiers, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. Lady Veril sat at the center of the council table, her smile sharp and waiting. Marcus Blackwood stood in the center of the hall, flanked by 2 lawyers. He looked older than Rowan remembered, grayer, thinner, but his eyes still held that cold, calculating light. Rowan walked in beside the triplets, his pups at his heels. Shade growled low in his throat. Lewin pressed close to Rowan's leg. Even Soren, still pale, refused to let go of Rowan's sleeve. Rowan. Marcus's voice was smooth, practiced. I've been looking for you. You need to come home. I am home, Rowan said quietly. This place isn't your home. These people aren't your family. No, they're not. Rowan stepped forward, away from the triplets, and faced his stepfather alone. My family was my mother, and you took her from me. Marcus's expression flickered. Your mother was ill. I did what was necessary. You hid me. You beat me. You told me I was a freak, that no one would ever want me, that the world would destroy me if it found out what I was. Rowan's voice didn't waver. But you were wrong. The room was silent. These pups came to me because something in them knew I was safe. Not because I'm powerful. Not because I can dominate them. Because I stayed. Because I refused to let them be alone. Rowan looked around the hall, at the nobles, the caregivers, the triplets. That's what a moonwolf is. Not a weapon, not a threat. A home. Marcus's jaw tightened. You're being manipulated. These alphas, they've done nothing but protect me. Rowan's voice hardened. They asked for my help. They gave me space. They never once tried to on me. He looked at Kaylin, at Theron, at Caspian. That's more than you ever did. Selene stepped forward. The council has reviewed the records from the shelters. Marcus Blackwood's name appears in connection with several questionable transactions involving orphan pups, including the falsification of death certificates and the redirection of funds meant for their care. The room erupted in murmurs. Marcus's face went pale. Furthermore, Selene continued, the investigation into the Eldergrove cover-up has revealed that Marcus Blackwood was directly involved in the disappearance of at least 12 pups over the past decade. He wasn't hiding Rowan to protect him. He was hiding him to control him and to profit from the system that was supposed to protect orphan children. Lady Veril's smile had vanished. Is this true? Rowan looked at his stepfather, at the man who had raised him in fear, who had stolen his mother, who had tried to bury his gift. It's true. Marcus's composure cracked. You ungrateful. Enough. Kaylin's voice cut through the hall like a blade. Marcus Blackwood, you are hereby charged with fraud, child endangerment, and conspiracy. You will be detained pending trial. Your assets will be frozen, and any claims you have made against Rowan Ashford or the Northern Dominion are dismissed. Guards moved forward. Marcus shouted, struggled, but they dragged him from the hall. The last Rowan saw of him was his face, twisted with rage and disbelief, as the doors closed. Silence settled over the council hall. Lady Veril stood slowly. This changes nothing about the question of the Omega's methods. We still need to determine. No, Caspian interrupted. We don't. He stepped forward, and his brothers flanked him. The trial is concluded, Kalen said. His voice didn't need force, it carried anyway. Rowan Ashford is recognized as Moon Wolf of the Northern Dominion. His authority over the shelters is permanent and protected. Lady Verrill's face went pale. You can't. I can't. Kalen's gaze was iron. And I have. The reaction wasn't immediate. Then a low sound, not fear, not panic, a rising wave of howls. Not from the nobles, from the wolves, caregivers, guards, even some of the younger alphas, acknowledging what had just been proven. Rowan stood in the center of the hall, his pups around him, the triplets at his side. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid. He was home. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Moonhaven was established as a permanent sanctuary, not just a shelter, but a place designed around healing instead of control. Open spaces, quiet areas, no forced schedules, no punishment for grief. Caregivers trained to stay, not fix. More pups arrived. Some angry, some silent, some convinced no one would keep them. Rowan stayed. That was the difference. Shade became his constant shadow. Lumen grew stronger slowly, helping newer pups eat. Soren smiled more often, no longer afraid to speak. Trouble continued her mission of stealing anything she decided was important. Flint and Amber turned half the sanctuary into controlled chaos. Rook quietly watched everything, always alert. And the triplets, they didn't rush anything. They stayed close, but never too close. They asked before touching. They gave space when needed. They stood beside Rowan, not over him. One evening, standing at the edge of Moonhaven as snow began to fall, Kalen spoke quietly. We would like to court you properly, he said. All three of us. No pressure. No bond unless you choose it. Rowan looked at them, at everything they had done, at everything they hadn't forced. What does that mean exactly? Theron answered, his voice softer than usual. It means dinners, walks, getting to know each other without the weight of a crisis pressing down on us. Caspian added, it means you get to decide if this is what you want. Not because of destiny, not because of duty, because you choose us. Rowan thought about his mother, about the stories she'd told him about love, real love, the kind that didn't cage or control. He thought about the pups, about the home he'd built, about the alphas who had seen him when he was invisible. Okay, Rowan said. Let's try. Months passed. The courtship was slow, careful, deliberate. Kalian brought him tea during late nights at the sanctuary. Theron debated philosophy with him, challenging his mind as much as his heart. Caspian taught him to ride, to laugh, to forget the weight of the past. The pups thrived. Moonhaven grew. And Rowan learned, day by day, that he was not broken. He had never been broken. He had only been hidden. One night, as they stood on the balcony of the sanctuary, watching the lights glow softly in the dark, Kalen took his hand. Happy, he asked. Rowan looked at him, at the three men who had found him when he was lost, who had given him a home, who had taught him that love didn't have to hurt. Happy, he said. Happier than I ever thought I could be. Caspian wrapped an arm around his waist. Theron pressed a kiss to his temple. This is just the beginning, Kalen said. Rowan looked out at the pups below, laughing, playing, living, at the sanctuary he had built, at the alphas who had chosen him. For the first time, he said, I believe that. And somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, not in fear, but in joy. The moon wolf had found his home. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Rowan had ever experienced. Not because they were dramatic, they weren't. Not because they were rushed, they were deliberately, almost painfully slow. The triplets courted him with the patience of men who had learned that some things could not be forced. Kalen brought him tea during late nights at Moonhaven, sitting in comfortable silence while Rowan reviewed reports or comforted a restless pup. He never pushed conversation, never demanded attention. He simply was there, steady and present, like the mountains that surrounded the sanctuary. Theron challenged him. They debated philosophy, history, the nature of pack bonds and destiny. Theron asked sharp questions that made Rowan think, made him defend his beliefs, made him grow. He treated Rowan like an equal, not a fragile thing to be protected. And Caspian made him laugh. He brought unexpected treats from the kitchens, taught Rowan to ride the horses that grazed in the estate's eastern fields, and told stories about his brothers that made Rowan see them as people rather than kings. "They're different with you," Caspian said one afternoon, as they sat on a hill overlooking Moonhaven. The pups played below, their laughter drifting up on the breeze. "Different how?" "Colder, usually. Kalen carries the weight of the crown like armor. Theron hides behind his intellect. But with you," Caspian smiled, "they soften." Rowan looked down at his hands. "I don't know what I'm doing. I've never had this, never even imagined it. Neither have we." Caspian's voice was gentle. "That's why we're taking it slow. We want to do this right. And if it doesn't work, then we'll still protect you, still stand beside you." Caspian's eyes were earnest. "That was never conditional, Rowan." 6 months into their courtship, the triplets asked Rowan to bond with them. Not in public, not in front of the council, just the 4 of them, standing at the edge of Moonhaven as the sun set behind the mountains. "We don't want to rush you," Kalen said, his voice low. "But we also don't want to wait any longer than necessary. We love you, Rowan. All 3 of us." Rowan looked at them, at these powerful alpha kings who had seen him at his worst, who had waited patiently, who had never once tried to own him. "I love you too," he said. "All 3 of you." The bonding ceremony was small, just family and close friends. The pups served as ring bearers, each carrying a small velvet pillow. Mira cried through the entire ceremony, though she pretended she wasn't. Lady Verrill, stripped of her position but still in attendance by royal decree, sat in the back with an expression that suggested she was swallowing something bitter. Celine handled the logistics with military precision. The triplets' mother, who had traveled from the southern states, embraced Rowan with tears in her eyes. "You've made them human," she whispered. "They've made me whole," Rowan replied. The vows were simple. No grand speeches, no dramatic declarations, just promises, made freely between 4 people who had chosen each other. "I promise to stay," Kalen said. "I promise to challenge you," Theron said. "I promise to make you laugh," Caspian said. And Rowan, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face, "I promise to be your home." When they kissed, all 4 of them, in the center of the garden, surrounded by flowers and fireflies, the pups howled. It was a sound of pure joy, and it echoed across the valley long into the night. Happiness, Rowan learned, was never permanent. 3 months after the bonding ceremony, a new threat emerged. Not from Marcus. He was still in prison, his appeal denied, his empire in ashes. Not from Lady Verrill. She had retreated to her estates, stripped of power, but not of spite. This threat came from beyond the borders of the Northern Dominion. A rogue alpha named Silas Kane had been gathering followers in the southern wilds, building an army of shifters who believed the old ways should return. He called himself the true alpha, and he claimed that moon wolves were an abomination, creatures whose power threatened the natural order of alpha dominance. "He's been targeting shelters," Celine reported, her face grim, "burning them, taking the pups he considers salvageable and killing the rest." Rowan felt sick. "How many?" 3 shelters in the past month. 47 pups killed. 62 taken. Kalen's jaw tightened. "And Silas came?" "His location is unknown. He moves constantly, stays off the main roads. But we have intelligence suggesting he's planning something larger, an attack on Nightfall Keep itself." Theron's eyes were cold. "He wants to make a statement. He wants the Moon Wolf," Caspian said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Think about it. He's been targeting shelters, places where Rowan's influence is strongest. He's trying to draw him out. Rowan felt the chill run down his spine. Then let him. No. Kaylin's voice was sharp. You're not bait. I'm not suggesting bait. I'm suggesting we stop hiding. I've spent 20 years in the shadows. I'm done. Kaylin studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. We do this together. All of us. The hunt for Silas Kane took them deep into the southern wilds. The triplets led a company of their best warriors, with Rowan at their side. The pups, his original 12, had insisted on coming. Rowan had refused at first, but Shade had growled at him for 3 days straight, and Lumen had given him such a look of betrayal that he'd finally relented. If we're going to protect our home, Soren had said, his voice steady despite his youth, we need to fight for it. Rowan had hugged him and said nothing. He was so proud of them it hurt. The tracking took 2 weeks. They followed rumors, intercepted messages, questioned informants. Finally, they found him. Silas Kane had made his base in an abandoned fortress in the mountains, surrounded by his followers, a motley collection of desperate alphas, disaffected betas, and frightened omegas who had been told that the old ways would restore their honor. Rowan watched from a ridge as the triplets planned their assault. His followers aren't all evil, Rowan said quietly. Some of them are just lost. Scared. We can't take that risk, Terrence said. We can give them a chance to surrender. Kaylin looked at him. And if they don't, then we do what we have to. Rowan's voice was steady. But we give them the choice first. The assault came at dawn. The triplets' warriors moved with practiced precision, surrounding the fortress before the defenders could react. Kaylin called for surrender, his voice amplified by magic so it echoed across the valley. Silas Kane, you are surrounded. Release the pups and surrender, and your followers will be shown mercy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the gates opened. Silas Kane stood in the doorway, whole and broad, his eyes burning with madness. Behind him, Rowan could see the captured pups, dozens of them, caged and terrified. Mercy? Silas laughed. There's no mercy in this world, only power. He raised his hand, and his followers surged forward. The battle was brutal, shorter than expected, but brutal. The triplets fought like demons, their years of training and experience making them nearly unstoppable. Rowan stayed back at first, protecting the pups who had come with him, using his scent to calm the captured children in their cages. But when he saw one of Silas's followers raise a blade against Caspian, something inside him snapped. He moved without thinking. His body shifted, not into a wolf, but into something else, something older. His form shimmered, and when he emerged, he was no longer just an omega. He was the moon wolf, silver-white, radiant, with eyes that glowed like the full moon. The battlefield went still. Silas Kane stared at him, his face pale. Impossible. Rowan's voice was not his own. It was deeper, older, filled with the weight of centuries. You called me an abomination. You called my power unnatural. But you were wrong. I am not a threat. I am a promise. A promise that no one has to be alone. That no child has to be afraid. That the old ways are done. He stepped forward, and Silas Kane stepped back. Surrender, Rowan said, and you will be shown mercy. Continue this madness, and you will be shown justice. Silas's face twisted. He lunged. It was over in seconds. The triplets moved faster than Rowan could track, disarming Silas and pinning him to the ground. His followers, seeing their leader defeated, threw down their weapons. Rowan stood in the center of the battlefield, his form still shimmering, and wept. Not for Silas, for the pups in the cages, for the children who had been taken, who had been told they were worthless unless they could fight. You're safe now, he whispered, releasing his hold on the transformation. His normal form returned, and he sank to his knees. Kaylin was there in an instant, his arms around him. You're incredible, he murmured. I'm tired. Then rest. We'll handle the rest. The captured pups were brought back to Moonhaven. There were 62 of them, ranging in age from infants to young adolescents. Some had been with Silas for weeks, others for months. All of them were terrified. Rowan spent the next days moving among them, not speaking much, just being there. His pups, his original 12, helped, settling the newcomers, showing them that Moonhaven was a place of safety, not fear. Soren was especially good at it. The silver-haired Omega who had once been lost himself now moved among the new arrivals with quiet confidence, sitting beside the ones who cried, humming to the ones who couldn't sleep. "You're good at this," Rowan said, watching him comfort a small wolf pup who refused to shift. Soren looked up, his gray eyes serious. "You taught me. You stayed until I wasn't alone anymore. That's all they need." Rowan felt tears prick his eyes. "I'm proud of you." Soren's smile was small but real. "I know." Silas Kane was tried by the council and sentenced to life in prison. His followers were given lesser sentences, depending on their involvement. Some were released to the custody of their packs. Others chose to stay at Moonhaven, working as caregivers for the pups they had once helped imprison. It was a strange form of justice, but Rowan believed in second chances. He had needed one himself, once. Moonhaven expanded again. New wings were built, new caregivers trained, new pups arrived. The sanctuary had become a beacon of hope for the lost, not just for pups, but for adults who had been broken by the old ways. Rowan's pups grew. Shade, once the tiny black pup who refused to leave his side, became a fierce protector, leading the sanctuary's security team. Lumen, the red-brown pup found under a fallen tree, became a healer, learning from the physicians and caregivers. Soren became a counselor, helping new arrivals process their trauma. Flint and Ember turned their chaos into creativity, designing enrichment programs for the younger pups. Rook, once the growling silver shadow, became the sanctuary's nighttime guardian, patrolling the grounds with quiet vigilance. And Trouble remained Trouble. She stole things, chewed things, and somehow made everyone love her anyway. "Your pups are remarkable," Kaylin said one evening, watching them play in the courtyard. "They're not my pups," Rowan said. "They're their own. I just help them find themselves." Kaylin pulled him close. "That's what you do. That's what you've always done." 2 years after the bonding ceremony, Rowan discovered he was pregnant. Not with one child, with 3. The triplets were, predictably, insufferable. Kaylin immediately increased the security around Moonhaven. Theron researched every pregnancy book in the Royal Library. Caspian commissioned a nursery that could only be described as excessive. "You're going to smother me," Rowan said, as Caspian presented him with a 5th blanket. "You're carrying our children. I'm allowed to be excessive. You're allowed to be calm." Caspian grinned. "Where's the fun in that?" The pregnancy was difficult. 3 alpha pups required more energy than Rowan's body could easily provide. He spent his last trimester on bed rest, his pups, his original 12, taking turns keeping him company. Soren read to him. Shade guarded his door. Lumen brought him herbal teas. Flint and Ember drew him pictures. Rook sat by the window, watching for threats. Trouble brought him stolen pastries from the kitchens. "You're going to be an amazing father," Soren said one afternoon, his hand resting on Rowan's belly as one of the pups kicked. "So are you," Rowan replied. Soren looked up, surprised. "What? You've been helping raise pups since you were 1 yourself? You're already a father, Soren, just not in name." Soren's eyes glistened. "I never thought about it that way. Maybe you should." The triplets were born on a stormy spring night. 2 boys and a girl, perfect and healthy, with tufts of dark hair and lungs that could wake the dead. Kaylin held the first, his hands trembling. Theron held the second, his expression soft in a way Rowan had never seen. Caspian held the third, tears streaming down his face. "They're beautiful," Rowan whispered, exhausted but exhilarated. There you, Kaelin said. All of them. There you. The years passed. The children grew. Moonhaven expanded. The pack, for that was what they had become, in all but name, thrived. Rowan no longer felt like the hidden Omega, the broken boy, the unwanted mate. He was the Moon Wolf, the heart of the Northern Dominion, the father of 3, the guardian of hundreds, the partner of 3 alpha kings who loved him more than he had ever thought possible. One evening, standing on the balcony of Moonhaven as the sun set behind the mountains, Kaelin took his hand. "What are you thinking?" Kaelin asked. "That I never expected this." Rowan looked at their children playing in the courtyard below, at the pups who had become family, at the alphas who had chosen him. "I spent 20 years being told I was nothing, that my gift was a curse, that I would never be loved. Your stepfather was wrong." "I know." Rowan smiled. "I've known for a long time now." Theron appeared on his other side, pressing a kiss to his temple. "You're brooding. I'm reflecting. There's a difference." Caspian joined them, wrapping his arms around Rowan's waist. "Let's go inside. The children want bedtime stories." "What kind of stories?" "About a lost Omega who found his home," Caspian said, "and the 3 alphas who loved him." Rowan laughed, letting them lead him inside. The pups, his original 12, were already gathered in the great hall, waiting. The younger pups were curled on cushions. His children were nestled in their father's arms. "Once upon a time," Rowan began, settling into his chair, "there was an Omega who thought he was broken." "That's a sad beginning," one of the younger pups said. "It gets better," Rowan promised. "Much better." He told them about the pups who found him, one by one. About the kings who came looking for a myth and found a family. About the battle for Moonhaven, the trial of Silas Kane, the healing of hundreds of lost children. He told them about love, not the kind that cages, but the kind that frees. And when he finished, the room was quiet, filled only with the soft breathing of sleeping pups. "That was a good story," Caspian whispered. "It's not a story," Rowan said. "It's our life." Moonhaven had become more than a sanctuary. It was a city, a pack, a home. Thousands of pups had passed through its gates, and many had stayed, becoming caregivers, healers, teachers. The old ways were fading, replaced by something new, something built on trust instead of fear, on love instead of dominance. Rowan's children were 10 now, wild and wonderful, with their father's dark hair and his stubborn chin. They ran through the halls of Moonhaven like they owned the place, which, technically, they did. The triplets had aged gracefully, their power undiminished, their love undying. Kaelin still carried the weight of the crown, but he no longer carried it alone. Theron still questioned everything, but he had learned to trust. Caspian still made them laugh, even on the darkest days. And Rowan was happy. He stood on the balcony of his home, watching the sun set behind the mountains. His pups, his original 12, now grown, now leaders in their own right, were scattered across the courtyard, each pursuing their own path. Shade was training the next generation of guardians. Lumen had become the sanctuary's head healer. Soren led the counseling department. Flint and Amber ran the education programs. Rook commanded the night watch. Trouble. Well, trouble was still trouble. "You're brooding again," Kaelin said, appearing beside him. "I'm counting my blessings. Find them all." Almost. Rowan turned to look at his husbands, his partners, his home. "I love you, all 3 of you." "We know," Theron said, joining them. "We love you too." Caspian wrapped his arms around Rowan from behind. "Forever, forever," Rowan agreed. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the stars emerged, one by one. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, not in fear, but in joy. The Moon Wolf had found his home, and he was never leaving. 15 years after Rowan first walked into the council hall, Moonhaven had become something no one had anticipated. Not just a sanctuary, a nation, The pups who had once cowered in shelters now ran territories of their own, leading patrols, teaching new generations, building a world that had never been built before. Rowan's children were 15 now. Kalen, the youngest of the triplets, named for his father, was quiet and thoughtful, with the same silver-gray eyes that had once assessed Rowan across a tavern room. Theron, the middle, was sharp-tongued and quick to laugh, his father's intellect wrapped in Caspian's warmth. And Lena, the only daughter, was fierce and protective, her mother's stubbornness and her father's combined strength. They were not alphas, they were not betas. They were something new, moon wolves, like their father, though their gifts had not yet fully manifested. Rowan watched them with a mixture of pride and fear, knowing that the world would not always be kind to those who were different. "You're brooding again," Kalen said, appearing beside him on the balcony. "I'm thinking. Same thing." Rowan smiled. "They're going to leave soon. Lena wants to join the Eastern Patrol. Theron wants to study in the Southern libraries. Kalen wants to. I don't know what he wants. He won't tell me. He wants to stay," Kalen said quietly. "He's afraid of disappointing you." "He could never disappoint me. Tell him that." Rowan turned to look at his husband, his first, in the order of their bonding, though they never kept count. Kalen had aged gracefully, silver streaking his dark hair, but his eyes were still the same. Steady, loving. "I will," Rowan said. Kalen found his namesake in the library, surrounded by old texts about Moonwolf history. The boy looked up when his father entered, his expression guarded. "Your father wants to talk to you," Kalen said, settling into the chair across from him. "Which father?" "All of us, eventually." Kalen smiled. "But Rowan first." The boy set down his book. "I know what he's going to say. He's worried about me leaving. He's worried about all of you leaving." Kalen leaned forward. "But that's not why he wants to talk. He wants to understand. He wants to know what you need." Kalen, the son, was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay here, at Moonhaven. I want to learn to be a moon wolf from him. Not from books, not from strangers." "Then tell him that. What if he's disappointed?" Kalen reached across the table and took his son's hand. "He could never be disappointed in you. Not in any of you. You're his greatest joy." The boy's eyes glistened. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden." Kalen's voice was firm. "You're a gift. Now go find your father." Rowan was in the garden when his son found him. The boy hesitated at the edge of the path, then crossed to stand beside him. "I'm not leaving," Kalen said. Rowan turned to look at him. "You're not." "I want to stay. I want to learn from you. I want to understand what it means to be a moon wolf." He took a breath. "If that's okay." Rowan pulled him into a hug, holding him tight. "It's more than okay. It's everything." That evening, the family gathered in the great hall of Moonhaven. Rowan's original pups, now adults, now leaders, had come from across the territories to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the sanctuary's founding. Shade stood at the head of the security team, his black hair streaked with silver, his eyes still sharp. Lumen had become the sanctuary's head healer, his calm presence a balm to the sick and frightened. Soren led the counseling department, his silver hair a familiar sight to anyone who had ever been lost. Flint and Ember ran the education programs, their chaos now channeled into creativity. Rook commanded the night watch, his silence still intimidating, his loyalty absolute. Trouble. Well, Trouble was still Trouble. She had become the sanctuary's unofficial ambassador, stealing hearts instead of pastries. "Look at them," Caspian said, wrapping an arm around Rowan's waist. "You built this." "We built this," Rowan corrected. "You started it. With a storage room and a pack of abandoned pups." Rowan smiled. "I was just trying to survive." "And now?" Theron asked, appearing on his other side. "Now I'm living." The anniversary celebration included a ceremony, a tradition they had started 5 years ago, where pups who had come of age were formally welcomed into the Moonhaven pack. This year, there were 37. Some had been at the sanctuary for years. Others had arrived recently, still scared, still healing. But all of them had found a home. Rowan stood at the front of the hall, his children beside him, his husbands behind him. The pups approached one by one, each receiving a small silver pendant, the symbol of Moonhaven. "You are not lost anymore," Rowan said to each of them. "You are found. You are found. You are home." When the last pup had received their pendant, the hall erupted in howls, not of mourning, but of joy. The sound echoed through the valley, a promise that no one would ever be alone again. But even in times of peace, shadows lingered. 2 weeks after the ceremony, a scout returned from the eastern border with troubling news. A new group had formed, small, secretive, but growing. They called themselves the Purists, and they believed that moon wolves were an abomination that must be destroyed. "They're not military," the scout reported. "Not yet, but they're recruiting, and they have deep pockets." Kalen's expression hardened. "Who's funding them?" "Unknown, but the trail leads south, toward the old territories." Rowan felt a chill run down his spine. The old territories, where Marcus Blackwood had once held sway, where the old ways still had power. "We need to investigate," Theron said. "We need to be careful," Caspian countered. "If we go in aggressively, we'll confirm everything they believe about us." Rowan listened to them debate, his mind racing. Then he spoke. "I'll go." The room went silent. "No," Kalen said immediately. "I'm the Moon Wolf. They're afraid of me because they don't understand me. Let me show them. It's too dangerous. I've been in danger my whole life." Rowan met Kalen's eyes. "But I've never been alone. Not since I met you." Kalen's jaw tightened. Then he nodded. "We go together. All of us." The trip south took 2 weeks. They traveled in small groups, avoiding main roads, staying in safe houses established by loyal allies. Rowan's children insisted on coming, and this time, even Kalen couldn't refuse. "You're too young," he had argued. "We're moon wolves," Lena had replied. "Same as father. We have a right to protect our home." Kalen had looked at Rowan, who had shrugged. "She's not wrong." The Purist headquarters was a compound in the southern hills, surrounded by walls and guarded by armed shifters. But the triplets had intelligence, and the intelligence had weaknesses. They infiltrated at night, using the shadows and their knowledge of the terrain. Rowan's scent, calm, steady, reassuring, kept the guards from raising alarms. When they found the leader, they were surprised. It was a woman, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with the bearing of someone who had once held great power. "Lady Verrill," Kalen said, his voice cold. She smiled, the same sharp smile Rowan remembered from the council hall. "You didn't think I'd given up, did you? I thought you'd learned." "I learned that power doesn't come from councils. It comes from belief." She gestured to the followers gathered behind her. "These people believe in me. They believe the old ways are the right ways." "The old ways left children to die," Rowan said. "The old ways created shelters full of broken pups who couldn't heal because no one stayed long enough to help them." Lady Verrill's eyes narrowed. "Sentimentality. Compassion." Rowan stepped forward. "You've spent your whole life afraid of losing power. But power isn't control. It's trust. It's love. It's building something that lasts beyond you. And you think you've built that?" "I know I have." Lady Verrill laughed. "Then prove it. Surrender to me, and I'll let your family go." "No," Rowan's voice was steady. "I'm not surrendering. I'm offering you a choice. Stand down, and you and your followers will be shown mercy. Continue this madness, and you will be shown justice. You can't defeat us. I don't need to defeat you." Rowan let his scent open, fully, completely. Not a command, not a weapon. An invitation. "I just need to show them what they're fighting against." The followers hesitated. Some lowered their weapons. A few stepped back. Lady Verrill's face twisted with rage. She lunged. Rowan didn't move. He didn't need to. Kaelin stepped in front of him, disarming her with a single motion. Theron and Caspian flanked her, their presence overwhelming. "It's over," Kaelin said. Lady Verrill stared at Rowan, her expression crumbling. "You've ruined everything." "No," Rowan knelt beside her. "I've given you a chance to start over. That's more than you ever gave anyone else." Lady Verrill was taken into custody, her followers given the same choice Silas Kane's had been: prison or rehabilitation. Many chose rehabilitation, and over time, some became allies. Rowan returned to Moonhaven with his family, exhausted but alive. The pups, his original 12, were waiting at the gates, their faces bright with relief. "You're back," Soren said, hugging him. "We're back. Is it over?" Rowan looked at his husbands, at his children, at the home he had built. "For now," he said. "But there will always be new threats, new challenges. That's the world we live in. And we'll face them together?" Shade asked. Rowan smiled. Together. That night, Rowan stood on the balcony of his home, watching the stars emerge. Kaelin joined him, then Theron, then Caspian. "You're brooding again," Kaelin said. "I'm thinking, what about how lucky I am?" Rowan turned to look at them. 20 years of hiding, 20 years of being told I was nothing, and now this. "This is just the beginning," Theron said. "It's been the beginning for a long time," Caspian added. "Every day with you is a beginning." Rowan laughed, pulling them close. "I love you, all three of you." "We know," they said in unison. The stars shone brightly overhead. Below, the pups howled, a sound of joy, of promise, of home. The moon wolf had found his pack, and he was never leaving.